I would like to welcome all of you, the friends of Val Hanson. Thank you for coming to the celebration of his life, one of the kindest men to ever walk this planet. This is the biography of Val. He was 78 years old and taken from us suddenly, but his passing was as gentle as it could be for such a gentle man. Val Hanson was born in Pomona, California, and went to Pomona High School, where he met the love of his life, Winnie, and they were married in 1956. They moved to Tucson, Arizona, where he worked for Hughes Aircraft. Winnie and Val had 3 children there. Daughter Dion is the oldest, with 2 younger brothers, James Val Jr. and Vaughn. The Hansons came back to Pomona, where Val went to work for the Pomona Police Department as a communications technician, where he designed the first mutual communications dispatch, and people from all over the world came and toured the department in the 1960s. He would go on to design many more innovations with advanced techniques for law enforcement. Winnie and Val went on to become the owners of a snowmobile ski lodge in Togety, Wyoming, until the business became overwhelming and they got tired of the ice and snow. They moved to Rialto, where Val worked for Aircom at the Rialto Airport before he went to work for the Bureau of Land Management and retired after 20 years there. During all of this, from 1982 on, Val was at work full-time for Rialto Community Players at a very reduced rate, approximately 7.5 cents. And you'll know where that is from if you've ever seen Pajama Game. So, and I will be telling you all his cute little stories later on. Val was a magician with lighting and always made Rialto community Players look fantastic. To all his friends at Rialto Community Players, he will always be their Prince Valiant. Rialto Players will celebrate his kind spirit, sweet humor, and talent as a lighting genius, a wonderful husband and father, with a Sunday matinee today starring Val Hanson at 2 o'clock, December 1st, at the Sandra R. Courtney Community Playhouse. There will be a reception afterwards, and there will be time for each and every one of you that would like to say a few words later on in the program. I will let you know when that is. And as a special request from Winnie, we have Bob Fraley and Joey Mercado to entertain you.
Well, it's an honor for us to sing for you today while Bob's getting all of the instruments out. Val is probably the kindest man I have ever met, and funny too. He and I gave each other a hard time about working in the box office. The last time I saw him, he was in the box office, and I said, "Oh, Val, you're going to work in the box office?" He goes, "No, I'm cleaning it up so you can get started." So we always had that, and I loved him. We're going to share a few songs with you today. The first one is Amazing Grace by request. Winnie wanted to hear that, and we're going to do it with the fiddle today. So our second song is going to be The Glory of Love. And it makes us think about Val and just his little wittiness, kind of a dry humor, and all of a sudden he's funny and you just don't expect it. And then our last song is What a Wonderful World, because knowing him has made this a wonderful world.
You ready, hon?
Feel free if you want to sing with us. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. sing God's praise than when we first begun. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. This song really makes me think of Val's personality. I hope you enjoy it. You've got to give a little, take a little, and let your poor heart break a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. You've got to laugh a little, cry a little, until the clouds roll by a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. As long as there is you and us, we've got the world in all its charms. And when the world is through with us, we've got each other's arms. You've got to win a little, lose a little, yes, and always have the blues just a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. That's the story of, that's the glory of love.
All righty. This was another request by, well, we came up with that other one on our own, just to surprise you.
Made us think of him.
Yeah, it really did. Anyway, this next one, we were told that Val really liked Louis Armstrong, Satchmo, and this is a really beautiful song, and we're going to give it a go here. This is just really a pleasure that you asked us to do this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a wonderful world because of Val.
Here we go. Going to do this twice.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed day and that dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, and also the faces of people going by.
I see friends shaking hands and saying, how do you do? Really they're saying, I love you.
I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They learn much more than you'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And
Do you remember Radio Gals? These two were in it, and they were great, just great. The people you will see up here will have been on this stage multitudinous times, but it's my turn. And my name is Sandy Courtney, and I want to write this down so I don't forget anything. 31 years ago, Winnie Hanson came into Parks and Recreation office where I happened to be painting signs for the second show of my fledgling Rialto Community Players. She said she was wondering if she could help with the theater. And I apologized because we had already cast the show, and she said, "Oh, that's okay, I just want to help." Can you imagine how excited I was? Even though I didn't know at that moment I would get 2 for 1. I joked over the years that Winnie and I were joined at the hip, but if Winnie was my right hand, Val was my left. I soon found out that lurking behind the kindness of this tall, good-looking, quiet man was a lighting genius. He was always so delightful to be around and saw the humor in everything. All our mishaps and crazy parts of shows were just made for jokes, as in Pajama Game, where they were striking for 7.5 cents. Val loved that one since we weren't paid, and he would say he wanted double time. But I told him he would get paid in hot dogs from my famous hot dog lunch on set building weekends. He said, okay, but only if I had sauerkraut for him. So believe me, there was always sauerkraut and laughter, plenty of laughter with Jim, Bob, and Ken. Another story he loved and would tell many times over the years was when we were in the gym and rushing to get the set done for Arsenic and Old Lace. As we were opening the next night, there we were in the middle of the night at 2:30, and the set director was sticking to his 5-set process of painting fleur-de-lis squares as wallpaper. And my 17-year-old son shows up at the door and starts scolding me for worrying him and why was I out this late and on, and Val was hysterical. He was laughing so hard. "Go, Sandy, go," he said. "We don't want a Todd to worry." So they were there till 4 in the morning and decided that was it, and hid what they didn't do behind a huge picture. Well, wouldn't you know, on opening night, the next night, the slamming of the doors made the set shake, and soon the picture started slipping. And we were all holding our breath, hoping not to see the big blank spot as it began to slide. It stopped just short, and the giggling out front was just huge. That same show, the electricity went off, and as Val was scrambling to get the lights on, Candy Kane was lighting candles on the stage, talking in her Abby Brewster voice. Great show, great memories. In the 1980s, to set lights in the gym, Val would have a 30-foot scaffolding way up there in the gym and attach coffee cans around the floodlights. That's how we began. So on January 20th, 1990, you can see how grateful he was when he had his own office here in this wonderful theater. He was there every step of the way in building this theater with his partner in crime, Winnie. He was always the quiet in the middle of the storm, but always had a twinkle. I remember we were bent over laughing when we were putting 1,000 Clowns together and had put in 10 doors, and then found out we needed a satellite stage and one more stupid door. That just sent us over the edge, and we just stood there bent over laughing. Val was famous for wearing his M&M tie for opening night. So I got one of his ties. So we're all wearing ties today in Val's memory. In the light booth, we would have bowls of M&Ms for the crew. So about a year ago, when the fitness center next door was being rebuilt, a bunch of our furry friends decided to come over and visit us and found some tasty M&Ms in the tech booth. Yike! Then they migrated to other parts of the theater. Yike! So Val became chief of the Rat Patrol, along with the exterminators, and then his twinkle kicked in again. He made a plan with my husband, Don, where he would man the spotlight and Don would handle the shotgun, and they would stand on the balcony and get those furry suckers, and they ran across the stage. Many laughs ensued from that, and more jokes to come. The exterminators did their job, but Val put a fail-safe plan into action in the booth. He planted one M&M up there, and if it was missing, it was time for the Rat Patrol to spring into action. I gotcha this time. Just so you know, the M&M is still up there. Recently, when he became chief cook and bottle washer, when Winnie went down, he found the humor in that, too, by calling himself Matilda. But that was Val, kind, sweet, loving, responsible, creative, and most of all, my friend, who I have always called Prince Valiant. I know he loved the theater. This would be a very different place without my two favorite people. We have reserved your seat for you today, Val, L1. And we will be naming your office of these many years the Val Hanson Tech Booth in your honor. Thanks for the memories. We will miss you desperately. I would like to introduce the mayor of Rialto, Deborah Robertson, who is a close friend of both Winnie and Val. Deborah and Winnie served together as councilpersons for 8 years. Deborah?
Lights. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone, and especially with Winnie. I told Winnie as I came in, it's amazing to think that Val is not here with us, but he is going to always be with us in our spirits and in our hearts. Val and Winnie were just so amazing to always see. It was really to see such a tower of strength and pillar. And what was beautiful about them, if you happen to know them and seen them at different times, they always loved to walk and hold hands together. I remember seeing them on Riverside Avenue one Saturday morning. They would walk out and go and get their morning walk. And they would be holding hands. And I said, that to me was just so beautiful to see this tall gentleman always just holding this little lady's hand, and they were always there together. Winnie, I used to tell Val that Winnie was responsible for my career, the beginning of my political career, because I was appointed. And Winnie was that last deciding vote that was fortunate enough to make sure that I became a council member. She and I many times traveled together. Our first travel together was we were roommates in Sacramento, and we had wonderful times together in our pajamas, sitting and talking about the things we wanted to see. We also traveled to China together and had a great time in China for about 7 or 8 days. And I told everyone last Tuesday night at council that it was so amazing because all of us had traveled to different parts of China. I can't even begin to tell you the names and locations, but it was a 7-day bus trip. And we all were a little tired of the Asian cuisine. I mean, it was only different feelings and flavors in different parts of the state. But I never thought that Val would be the first one to break. And when we finally got to a place where there was a McDonald's, he was the first one in line to get a Big Mac. He said, I can't take it any longer. I can't take it. I didn't even know Val would eat a Big Mac, let alone to find that he and my other half were the first ones in line, and Val beat Dana getting a Big Mac. They could not take, they told me, another eggplant dish. They didn't care how it was prepared. So it is with great pleasure. Val used to always come up and whisper to me. I'm just so happy to have known him personally and know Winnie. It was just amazing that he would always be there. He was always smiled. Just what Sandy said, he's a kind, gentle man, just kind, but he always lent himself to the city, of course, to the Rialto Playhouse. And Sandy preempted my comments and letting everyone know that it is going to be our intent to name the tech booth in his honor. But we also plan on naming something else in this community in their honor. And so I want to take a moment to read this resolution. We have a process in our city where when we name things, we need to actually hold public hearings and make sure that everyone's in agreement, and we won't go doing a background check and all of that. I mean, I think Winnie and Val have definitely been pillars of our community, stellar folks, so we don't have to go to that level. But there will be an intent to name things in their honor. And so this resolution that I present today is just to say that whereas longtime residents Val and Winnie Hanson have become well known as pillars of integrity within our community, and whereas former city council member Winnie Hanson, along with her husband Val, were devoted to the benefit of the community by inspiring new beginnings through the fine arts of theater, and whereas dedicated members of the Rialto Community Players, both Winnie and Val devoted endless hours planning, organizing, producing, and performing for the past 34 years. And whereas Val and Winnie Hanson were instrumental in the construction of the Rialto Community Playhouse, and Winnie's vision was to expand upon the stage venue with the construction of the outdoor stage at Rialto Park, which has proven to be a valuable resource for additional community activities. And whereas it is Winnie and Val's dedication that has earned them the recognition they so richly deserve, the City Council wholeheartedly and enthusiastically endorsed the naming of the outdoor stage, the Winnie Hanson's Outdoor Stage at Rialto Park, and we also the Val Hanson Technical Booth at the Sandra Courtney Community Theater, which will continue to reflect their passion and strong spirit to enlighten and entertain the city of Rialto. Now, therefore, I, Deborah Robertson, Mayor of the City of Rialto, along with the City Council, do hereby resolve that the city officially expresses sincere appreciation for both Winnie and Val and their efforts towards enhancing our community through the fine arts of theater, and name the aforementioned facilities after these two extraordinary individuals. And it's signed by me on December 1st, 2013. So. Thank you. Thank you, Winnie. So blessed. That's fine. Thank you, Winnie. You're so blessed. That's fine. And let me just say that also on a personal note, we want to let everyone know that this letter was prepared for me, and it just says that, Dear Winnie, as we gather today to celebrate the life of a special and beloved friend, it is with honor that the City of Rialto presents the Rialto Community Players with a check in the amount of $150 in memory of Val Hanson. Although this tribute is about Val, it is not only for him, it is also for us. It is our celebration, our acknowledgement, our memory, and our farewell to Val, and we bow to his exit from the grand stage we call life. We are all blessed to have him touch our lives. So please accept the check in Val's memory and know that both you and Val will continue to be in our hearts. And the city wanted to send that in lieu of flowers. So again, it's been a pleasure and honor to have been blessed with Winnie and Val in my life. I'm so thankful that they have always stood by me from the very time she voted to appoint me, and then always was there to support me through all of my elections. But more importantly, that you guys let me be a personal friend, and they always extended their home and their hearts to me. So Winnie, you and Val will always be with me. Thank you very much. Love you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. That was wonderful. I also want to thank Brian and Alexis Boerer for the $500 donation to Rialto Community Players in Val's name. Thank you very much, Boerers. I would now like to introduce Jenna Impastato, who is a member of Rialto Community Players Board and does all of our programs and has been in many shows over the years. She has a special presentation. Jenna?
Hello. There are some people who come into our lives and make a mark on our hearts, and we are very lucky if we are ever able to find the words to describe what that person means. Val has been a part of my life for so long. I started here, I was just a little girl. He's the reason that I loved being here at the theater, and I don't know if he ever knew that. I can't think of a way that is good enough or the best word to describe what will be missed for me. And all I can do is try, and I think we all feel the same way. He was the best. So on behalf of the Rialto Community Players Board, and in an effort to preserve the dedication, love, and loyalty Val Hanson brought to our little theater, I would like to announce the induction of the Val Hanson Hall of Fame, and beginning with Val and continuing on to honor those that are a part of our family and share the qualities we loved about Val the most: patriotism, honor, humor, strong values, leadership, being a teacher and a friend. And I'd like to end with one of my favorite memories of Val. When I saw him last in his true spirit, he told this joke. Did you hear about what's going to happen with Obamacare? And Obama wants to get rid of all the aspirin because it's white and it works.
Okay, moving right along. I would like to introduce Dick Crow, a dear friend of Val's, who will be the representative for the BLM, and you have seen him many times on this stage. Richard Crow, there you are. In fact, Val is the one that talked Richard into coming here, and his wonderful, beautiful wife, Beverly, who's been in a million things here. And I know the minute you see her, you'll know who she is. Dick.
Thank you, Sandy. I'm going to refer to the Rialto Theater. I shouldn't call it that anymore, should I? I was just thinking right before this, I've knew Val a long time, but I didn't realize I knew him actually a little bit more than half of my life. And I'm going to read this too because it'll go faster and I won't miss anything. I may be unique here in that I worked with Val for about 17 years with the Bureau of Land Management, and then for about the same period of time, periodically, worked with him here at Rialto Theater for about 35 years total. What strikes me from my association with Val is that he was a great family man. Now you may ask, well, what's that got to do with the theater and what's that got to do with the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM for short? As a BLM radio technician, Val was the kingpin for the radio communications for intense fire and law enforcement programs throughout the California desert. And he absolutely loved it. In part because he was part of a close-knit team, a family. In fact, the kind of family you get the sense of when you watch TV and there's a fallen fireman or policeman. In fact, let me ask here, how many of you out there were in some way involved in fire or law enforcement or radio communications or something to do with what Val did? So there you go. In this building, we saw, on the other hand, we saw how joyously Val participated in lighting design, stage construction, running the booth, and the bantering with performers and stage managers. He filled here an equally critical role, a niche. He was part of a family. I think being a family member, not only with the BLM and the greater BLM Forest Service, fire, et cetera community, and here, he was certainly an equally enthusiastic family man with Winnie and his children and grandchildren. Most of you are intimate with Val's work here, but perhaps you don't know what his federal government life was about. The scope of the BLM actions in managing the California desert and Val's support, part of it was huge. The spread of acres involved is mind-boggling. It was 25 million acres of the California desert. And for most of that time in his career, Val was the only radio technician. There were a dozen mountaintop, these numbers are not exact, a dozen mountaintop radio repeater sites, at least 10 administrative offices and fire stations, each with its own base station. There was one interagency dispatch center that was created, BLM Fire and our BLM Forest Service and Park Service, that served throughout Southern California, not just a small area. There must have been 200 fire, ranger, and other vehicles that had radios that Val had to install and maintain. Perhaps 300 handheld radios involved in all this. And the most intense fire and law enforcement program throughout, I think, in the United States, with all the fires you have in Southern California in summer and all the winter activity, which slowed us down getting here, by the way, from Glamis. Of course, Val did not personally work on all this equipment. At times, Winnie drove over and helped him. More seriously, while some vendors took overflow work, and Val sometimes teamed up with other agency radio techs, he was pretty much hands-on with all this. And when I say Winnie came over now and then to help, she actually did. Val referred to her as my volunteer. She would come over to the office now and then with lunch, and they would get into Val's tech truck and take off for the day. They would go to a mountaintop repeater site or a BLM fire station or something and do work, and he probably yelled a screwdriver, wrench, whatever. Some of the mountaintop radio sites were served by roads and others by helicopter only. And I'll just close with this, with a memory of Val from one of your local helicopter pilots. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he once was here, at least. And this really sums up the rest I would like to say about Val. And the quote goes, this is not my words. Val and I go back, way back. Pat and I lived in Rialto for years and got to know Val and Winnie through Val's work. He and I made many flights together to various BLM repeater sites, and both of us being licensed ham radio operators added to the connection. My fondest memory of Val was the ever-present smile on his face and the love of flying with me to the mountaintop sites out in the desert. He was the perfect passenger on every flight. Never a negative word about anyone, and Winnie was the love of his life. This was sent in by Pete Gillies, is that right? Chief Pilot, Western Helicopters, Rialto, California. I'll just close with something that came to my mind also recently. As Sandy said, when Val kept telling me, you ought to come out and take in a play and take in a play. And finally I did. And I got here and I thought, gee whiz, Val knows more than just radios. Gosh, he's a genius with lights and how to have lights bring out the essence of the plays and the different scenes of the plays. And then I got to wondering, well, when I got here and then got inspired by Beverly and started acting, and after a dozen plays or so, then I wondered somewhere along the line, did Val think, geez, I didn't know that guy could act. Thank you.
Next up, we have Tony Bittner and his daughter April, who have been longtime stage managers and actors in Rialto Players Productions. Tony?
This is my prop. One thing Val was attached to me with was coffee. He says, whenever Tony's the stage manager, I know I can find coffee backstage. And that's what I always remember. So we put a cup of coffee in the marquee too, just as remembrance of Val. A true gentleman, a gentleman, and we're really going to miss him.
Before I became a regular part of the theater, I'd always come in and tag along and just watch rehearsals with Dad, because everybody always seemed to manage to drag him on stage or drag him backstage. And every time I came in, Val and Winnie always had a wonderful smile and a hug for me. And several years ago when they did Annie Get Your Gun, I stepped in as a stage manager to help out Dad because he was dragged on stage. And we had these horrible, horrible pictures of Frank and Annie that were on either side of the stage. And one night, the picture of Frank fell off, and it wasn't a big deal, but the next night, I hear, uh-oh, over the headset. And within 2 minutes of them referring to this big, giant picture of Annie, somebody brings it back to me backstage and went, it fell off. And I grabbed a chorus member and said, go out and act like you're gonna hang this up. And just in time for my dad to refer to this big, huge painting. And over the headset, I hear Val go, well, we wondered how you were gonna pull that off in time. And after that show, he came up and said, now you're gonna screw them both to the wall so they stay put, aren't you? And that has always stuck with me. And anytime I think of Val, I always think of the smile and well, we wondered how you were gonna pull that off in time. Thank you.
Carrie Jones is like a daughter to Val and a multi-talented, integral part of Rialto Community Players. She has a few words for you.
I too, like Richard, recently figured out that I had known Val half of my life. It seems incredible. Winnie and Val are like other parents to me, always radiating love and warmth and great hugs. When Val would be down here working on a set and Sandy and I would be here painting, if there was a gap in the wall or a wobbly platform or something, we would always hear from Val, the painters will fix it. How many times over the years, I don't know. So I'd always roll my eyes and pretend to be mad about it, but secretly loved it. Until a few years ago, I started saying, no, Val, you need to fix this with lights. But Val was, in my opinion, not just a wonderful lighting designer, but he was an artist. And that word gets used a lot, and it doesn't really mean a lot anymore, but Val was really an artist. And we tried to pull a lot of the best photographs we had of shows that showed just how beyond wonderful his designs were. And I always loved Val's work ethic because he never was satisfied. He always kept tinkering with things and adjusting things. Even during the run of a show, he'd see something had moved or slipped a little, or he just thought it was just a little bit off. There was a shadow here. He would always be fixing his work and trying to make it better. And in my opinion, his Lights for Dracula that was in 2007 were what I would consider his masterpiece. Just incredible, beautiful work. And I always loved when I got to design a set and he got to light it, because I knew it would just be wonderful. And a few years ago, we did a musical called I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. And I took a picture of Val and Winnie during that show. Gabe, I don't know if you can pull that up now. But there was a song they loved to hear that was sung by Joe Musel in the show called Shouldn't I Be Less in Love with You? And every night when that song would come on, Winnie and Val would stand back here. And one night when I was here, I got their picture listening to that song. Joe Musel couldn't be here today, but another Joe Impastato, has graciously agreed to sing that song for Winnie and he's accompanied by Tony Spagnola. Thank you.
Now you get to see how a show gets put together.
The experts say it does not last. The experts say it's fleeting. The experts pray love fades so fast. Then tell me, why is my heart still beating? Shouldn't I be less in love with you? Shouldn't I address what time can do? Shouldn't I be more inclined to flee? Shouldn't I explore all I can be? Shouldn't I confess the sordid flame? Shouldn't I caress a cute young thing? Shouldn't I accept we've been through? Shouldn't I be less in love with you? After 30 years together, all those brutal fights, shouldn't I have quit? 'Cause marriage ends. Shouldn't I have split like all our friends? Shouldn't I profess it's time to go? Shouldn't I be less in love with you?
Thank you so much. Joe stepped in for Joe Musel, who played the part and is out of town at the last minute, and Tony, who banged on the piano at our memory show that Jabel put on. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, now we're going to give everybody a chance in the audience who would like to come up and say a few words. Fun story, a memory. So come on up, and if someone is up here, you can just wait on the sides, and we can take turns for each person to come up. The last time we did this, it worked out beautifully. So.
May I use the first one to, what I want to say is about 20 years ago, when I was in Rialto Park with my mother and sister visiting from Chicago. We were drawn to the park, by the music, and we had no idea what was going on, because I lived at Crestview
This is Charlene Peterson, and that's the kindness of strangers, but to become friends for a long time. Thank you. Okay. Johnny?
We've been doing some reminiscing. My name is Johnny. I'm Winnie's sister. We all went through high school together, and I just wanted to let you know that Val did not start his stage career here in Rialto. We were in high school, and he and his best friend, John Linder, were part of the stage crew. We were putting on a performance, Winnie was in the play, we were putting on a performance of Annie, Get Your Gun. And they needed a gun to fire on stage, so they borrowed one from the track team. So these boys got an idea, innocent little sweet Val. They got the idea, they loaded in the car, they dropped one of the classmates off, his name was Joe Beamer. He had some ketchup under his jacket. They dropped him off on the sidewalk in downtown Pomona. And as he went past the big thrifty drugstore with the great big glass windows, they fired this fake gun. Joe immediately smeared ketchup on his face, all down the window. Here come the sirens as Joe jumped in the car with Val and John and all of them. So he was into theater even in high school.
My name is Ryan Kerrigan, and hi, Winnie. I have been on the stage many times, and I did the calculations once Carrie said it as well. And being, I know I look much younger than this, but at 43, it was 1987 was the first time that I met all of them. And I thought of today, and I really wanted to say something about Val, that everyone has the stories. He is that really sweet guy. I had a nickname for him called Super G, which is Super Grip. And the story arrived when we did one of my first shows here, which I met my wife in, Noises Off. And that set was immense. It was huge. We had to spin these things that were just really tough. And a good friend of mine, Jason Giacopelli, and some of the other stage people were trying to move this set and flip it around, because the second part of the show, you get it from behind. So it's a great show. And they just having difficulty and saying, oh, this is not moving, there's something not working. And just Val comes from nowhere, goes right up, just puts a shoulder in it and just throws it around himself. And so from then on, I used to call him Super Grip. You know, he could do just about anything. But more than that, I really wanted to show, and I thought of some, there's a lot of cliches that you can say, and they've been said here, but they're truly not cliches when they're the truth. But I really wanted to kind of show what Val did every time he was here and what he meant. You see, Val, although he was the lighting genius that he was just that he would like to shine the light on you, never one to be the one to take that limelight. He was the silent worker. He was the one, people have said the word kingpin and all of these things, and you look at throughout, from BLM to everything else, you couldn't have what you had without him there. Although he wasn't out front, he wasn't in the marquee, he wasn't on stage, he didn't have the words. And I have never gone throughout my life thinking that I'm the only reason why we do the things. As eccentric, weird, strange, extrovert divas that we are to get up here, we really only say the words someone else writes for us. We couldn't be heard without the sound. We couldn't be seen without the sets or the lights. And so for me, I just hit me, and I ran to the hardware store, which is totally apropos for Hal, for how he went every day, and I think he was more comfortable there than he was anywhere else. And it's this. It's a pulley. A simple machine. Technically, what they call it. But without it, you physically couldn't do many of the things that you'd want to do. The curtains, for example. yes, he was not the curtains. He wasn't the director who said, go ahead and open them. He wasn't the actor that the curtains opened up to reveal. But without this, it's impossible to open these things. He made it that much easier to do what we did. Silently, he was there. And without him, it'll be tough. But through the years, he always helped people learn what they did. And at times it was difficult to find volunteers. It was always fine. If you were going to volunteer in the booth, so long as Val was there, it was going to be fine. He was going to help you. He was going to stick one of those walkie-talkies on you and just do what I tell you to do. And it was going to be fine. He was that pulley. I looked through the last 3 years in ITLs. It's the Inland Theater League Awards. And yes, there are times when they say choreography, set design, light design. But I really would like to see a Val Hanson Pulley Award. For those people who are in the background that make what we do appear so much easier. The Chris Cordascos, the Carrie, the Candy, the Winnie, the Val, the ever-patient Jim, and the other people who make all of this happen, to the Joannes who sell the tickets so that you can sit here. These simple machines make our life easier, and he'll be missed.
Good afternoon, one and all. My name is Joe Martinez. Most of you know me as a school board member, but this is my alter ego. I'm with the Rialto Fire Department, a volunteer with the Rialto Amateur Radio Club. Val was part of our group. Our group started approximately 5 years ago, but before that, approximately 20 years ago, Val was heading up a group or involved with the group. First time I remember Val, not meeting him, but seeing him in radio, was approximately 1970. I had just gotten out of high school in '71 and in radio myself, getting my first job, and I'd see him come across our business. And he always had that same demeanor, just a wonderful man. You've heard it all, so I won't repeat it. But the point that I would like to leave Winnie with, thank you from the community. The radio community, the ham community, remembers Val as W6RZR. And it was important that Winnie had K6RZR. That's how close they were. And when your calls are like that, the ham community knows that you are very close in your relationship. The most important thing that I wish to leave you with, Winnie, is the community is better off having you and Val. We will miss you both because you've moved to be close to family. But the legacy that you and Val have left is here for the rest of us to enjoy. And on behalf of the community, thank you. And Val, a ham greeting for those who don't know. It's hello, it's aloha, it's goodbye, it's best wishes. Val, 73s. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. In case you don't know me, my name is Candy Kane. I'm wearing this because Val Hanson gave it to me. It's my name tag. He thought that was very funny. And that I could wear it every day of the year because my name was Candy Cane. I think I'll wear it from now on. It was a joy to receive. And he gave this to me during a Christmas show we did here called "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." And we had a 7-foot Santa, and we had a reindeer who was part antelope, and she thought she was part Peter Pan, and hit the back wall over there, and wound up in the emergency room. Val bet me I wouldn't go in my antler suit, so I did. Sandy already sort of told you the story of Arsenic and Old Lace. Lights went out. I'm up there on stage. It's total darkness. I start to light the candles. Everyone's cracking up, but no one's laughing harder than Val Hanson at the tech booth. I looked over and said, "Well, this is not going to happen again, is it?" And he goes, "It did. I'm not sure it was an accident." Carrie Jones and I spent hour upon hour creating medieval costumes in my kitchen. Val told me he would not wear one. I said, "All the tech people are going to wear it. Not this one. But Val, I'll let you pick the color of your own tights." "Okay, I want brown." "Really? I sort of saw you in green." "I'm wearing brown." Opening night, I went up to him and said, "God, you look good in those green tights." On opening night here several times, we've had mishaps. And I know you don't think that Val's quite the costumer, but he is. I had an actor show up. He had no shoestrings for his shoes. So I walked out to Val and said, "I need those." And he goes, "Now?" And I said, "Well, I can't have them in a week. We're opening now." He took his shoestrings off. So I went to the back to give the guy the shoestrings. I come back out and said, "Val," and he goes, "You're not getting my shoes." I said, "I don't want your shoes, Val, but what about your socks?" "What, he's got no socks either?" I said, "Come on, Val. He's not a techie, he's an actor." He gave me the socks. Val also was part of naming us the Mighty Midget Movers. That was myself, Winnie Hanson, and Sandy. We were still in the gymnasium, and we needed flats desperately. We were still a poor group then. So we decided to get some muslin and make frames, and the girls would staple the muslin to the flats. We were having so much fun, the boys did not want to make the frames. We got one, and we stapled it together, and it had a huge wrinkle in it. And I don't know if it was Winnie or Sandy that said, "Oh, no." And I said, "Not to worry, we'll give it a facelift. Come on. Let's remove all the staples and put them back." Next thing you know, we look over, no one's building flats. They're standing there watching us. They said, "Well, you guys are more fun than what we're doing." Many hours of laughter and joy came to us because of Val. But I want you to know, besides being a lighting designer extraordinaire, I never, in all of our years here, did a show that he didn't do the lighting. I'll be there for you, kid. And he always will be. I know somewhere in one of my shows, if not all, a light will flicker, and I'll know it's him sending me a hug, and I'll send it right back. Thank you, Val, for the hours of love and kindness. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Story. I'm the city administrator for the city of Rialto. I've known Winnie and Val for an awful long time, way back when my kids were at the house being taken care of by your family. Now that my kids are growing up with grandkids and stuff, they send their blessings and their wishes today, too. And this theater means so much, meant so much to Val, whether it was up at the Johnson Center or down here. But in reality, some of the best theater, some of the best drama, some of the best comedy, some of the best suspenseful events occurred at 150 South Palm in the council chambers at City Hall. Winnie knows that, and Val experienced it. Very much so. And the one thing I always appreciate about Val and Winnie, and like I said, I've worked for the city for a lot of years and stuff, was their spirit and them just coming by and just to say hello and just be there for, especially Val. And so on behalf of the employees, I know the police chief's here, our city treasurer, other employees too, he meant a lot to all of us, and so do you. And so I may sound like a preacher right now, but this is the type of stuff, the conversations that I had with Val. He had conversations about theater, about things that were funny, about the shows that were coming up, just a lot of different things. But Val and I had conversations about forgiveness and patience and hard times. And the one thing that I'll remember Val, and we talked about it a lot, was out of Galatians 5:22, out of the Bible, which said, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control." Val depicted all 9 of those. All 9. He modeled that to Winnie. He modeled that to his kids, to his grandkids, to his great-grandkids, to all of us. There's this little thing I'd like to read that I put together that's kind of talks about Val, whether he was up there in the booth or when he would come by my office and talk to me. Sometimes Winnie and Val would just show up, and I'm busy doing a bunch of stuff, trying to make stuff happen and everything, and they would come by and just want to sit and talk and say hello to me. One time they came in, and I was just real busy and everything with a lot of stuff going on, and they came in, and all I think they wanted to sit and do and talk about with me was my son, who was going through cancer treatment. That's all. That's all. They didn't want any, there was nothing that they wanted, anything particular favor or anything. That's the kind of heart that Val had, and always with a smile. But this is something that will always remind me of Val. God took the strength of a mountain, the majesty of a tree, the warmth of a summer sun, and the calm of a quiet sea, the generous soul of nature, the comforting arm of night, the wisdom of the ages, the power of the eagle's flight. Then God combined all these qualities. There was nothing more he could expend. His masterpiece was now complete. He lovingly called it Val, our friend. And Val would come by, and he had the joke Val and I had for 20 years, 25 years. He'd come by, and he always said he had complaints for me at City Hall. And I was a fixer. Always had complaints. Always had complaints. And he'd always be in his pocket, and he'd always come by and everything and says, I got some complaints. I got some problems. He didn't even complain to me about rats. Trust me, in this place. He had every right to. But he didn't. And he'd come in and he'd always hunt around. I said, Val, do you have your list of the problems and the complaints and the things you want me to fix? He'd go, I lost it. I'd forgot it. Winnie's got it. Says, you know what? You're doing a fine job. You're doing okay. Everything's fine. Just keep your head up. Just keep going ahead. Just keep doing it. So I have no complaints for Val. I have nothing but the fondest memories and a warm heart from him. And just that now I can say from Matthew 25:21, well done, good and faithful servant. Thank you, Val. Thank you, Winnie.
Thank you. That was our city manager, Mike Story. We were like the Hatfields and the McCoys, though, because the painters and the light people did not get along, because you realize that it has to be dark in here when they're doing the lights, and we want light so we can see to paint. So we definitely had a little jostling going on. But I also want to say, Val might have been the light man, but this was the light woman, because he was up there and she was down here, and she'd look up and have her little box and she'd say, nope, that's not right. We need to gel that different. Okay, I want you to know we're here for Val, but they're a team, always will be. So, ladies and gentlemen, is there someone from the family that would like to speak?
I'm honored to represent the family, and I hope I do. Dad was a lot of fun. A lot of fun all through life. It wasn't just here. He was just fun. And all of our memories are fun and just wonderful memories, because the dad that you experienced here, he was the same at home. He was fun. He was always a beautiful man, a beautiful person. And and I know probably many of you know how old Dad is right now. Do you know? 39. That's right, he's 39. Dad got to 39, he never moved off of it. He was that way. He always had some fun thing that he would do. But Dad was, I was reading the Bible right after Dad passed, and this verse came to me. And some of you guys, this is a rerun. I'm sorry. But Proverbs 20, verse 7. A righteous man walks in integrity. Blessed are his children after him. And my dad lived integrity. And sometimes, and you'll know, I'm from Tennessee now, okay? And we can talk on the phone in the car in Tennessee. But often I'd call, and Dad, you could hear some fumbling around, and you didn't know what was going on, and he couldn't answer the phone. And finally, he'd get the phone answered. Well, he was pulling over to the side of the road so he could answer the phone legally. As Dad was that way, you know. It might drive you crazy, but that's how Dad was. He obeyed the law. He did what was right. And often after a barbecue, Dad loved barbecues. He loved to have people over the house, and we'd have everybody swim. And after the barbecue was over and everybody went home, Dad would go through the trash and make sure it was sorted in the right container. And for a son, that drives you crazy, but that was what Dad was. He was going to do it right. So, just a wonderful thing. And us, we don't have any bad memories of Dad. And that's one of the things that's a blessing to us as his children. You know, we don't have any memories of Dad coming home drunk, or beating Mom, or yelling at the kids, or any of those things. We don't have any of that to get over. And that is a blessing. And maybe you guys don't know what a blessing that is, but it is a blessing. And I'm so thankful for it. So thankful. And did we always make him proud? I don't think so. But Dad, like the complaints to the city manager, he never could find the disappointment to tell us. But he was always there to rescue or support us. And maybe he's rescued some of you here tonight. He was that kind of guy. He was the Good Samaritan in the Bible. He was that person. He always had time. Now, I'm going to tell a story it's easier for me to read it, so you just have to bear with me. But I'm going to tell the story. And Vaughn and Dion probably didn't know it, but I told it yesterday. One of my earliest memories is about Dad and the magic Santa Claus bicycle. This Christmas, Vaughn got his first bike. Vaughn is my younger brother. I was old enough that I had already begun to hear rumors at school that Santa was not real. Not real? Whew, I was getting shaken. My belief in Santa was near the edge that year. Then Dad loaded me in the station wagon and we picked up a bike from Sears. So I asked, but I thought Vaughn had asked Santa Claus for a bike. I didn't get it. Dad's simple reply was, Santa is very busy this year and he needed us to pick up the bike. He will come and get it later. Something's fishy here. I was thinking, yeah, those kids, they're right. So when we got home, I was surprised that Dad did not unload the bike and put it in the garage. Dad said Santa would just pick it up and bring it back at Christmas. Well, I kept an eye on that car. I knew something was going on here, so I wanted to make sure I knew, try to find out what it was. Well, I finally got tired of looking out the window at the car, so I went and checked the back of the station wagon, and the bike was gone. I don't know how he pulled that one off, Sandy, but he did. To this day, I have no idea what happened to the bike without me seeing it. I don't know what he did. That was when I found out, and I had a new respect for Dad, that he and Santa were tight. And for you ham radio guys, Dad raised us right. I'm a ham radio. I'm a general class, KE4JWT, and Vaughn is also a ham, and Mom is also a ham. And you know what it's like to grow up in a house where Dad is a communications technician for the city of Pomona. That's where we grew up. And so he did all the fire trucks and the police cars and all that communications there. Well, we grew up, and Dad always had a scanner going. You know, he had his finger on the pulse of Pomona. And if there was a crash or a fire or anything exciting, we were there. We'd all load up in the station wagon and we'd go and watch, you know. I think we pulled fire hose. In fact, when Eisenhower High School burnt, many years ago, we were there pulling fire hose for the fire department. And Dad was just a lot of fun, and he kept us in just a lot of things. And but one of the things I was thankful for in our family was, it was for the family. And I was thankful, and I'm going to just read a prayer to you that I prayed, you know, that I was just thankful. I wrote this down to Jesus in some private time. I thank you for allowing me to see my dad before you took him, mercifully to be with you. I love my dad very, very much, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in heaven and talk about you, Jesus. I want to know how you came to him. Who did he first meet? When did he see Rhonda's mom? Rhonda's my wife. Isn't she wonderful? She always had greens and cornbread for us when we visited. I want to thank you, Jesus and Holy Spirit, for making my one-on-one time with Dad so easy when I thought it was going to be a struggle. I want to thank you that when I asked Dad if Jesus was his Savior, he said absolutely, without hesitation or shame or thought, like he was proclaiming it to me. I want to thank you that Dad did not have departure in Rialto, and I don't mean that against Rialto, where family would not have been able to love on Dad. I thank you that Vaughn and Jared and Janae and Sharon and Leanne were able to spend time with Dad in the moving. I want to thank you that you showed mercy to Dad through your born-again bride. And one of the things that was so sweet, that when Dad moved to Sun City, and they weren't there long, but if they hadn't been in Sun City, the family could not have spent the time that they were able to devote to Dad, and the care and the loving kindness that was revealed in them. And I viewed this all from Tennessee. I wasn't able to be there as much as I wanted to, but I'm so very blessed to have a family like this, and so very blessed to have a dad that raised a family like this. And there's a verse that I wanted to share yesterday, but I just didn't have the timing. Isaiah 57:1. The righteous man perishes, and no one lays it to heart. Devout men are taken away, while no one understands. For the righteous man is taken away from calamity. He enters into peace. They rest in beds who walk in their uprightness. And Dad walked uprightly. And a lot of things vexed him that's in the news today, and I think that this is one of the things that he was taken away from what's coming. I don't know what's coming. But when we think about how much we love my dad, and we all loved him, every one of them. And if you've ever met Dad, you loved him. You loved him. And he loved you. But as much as we love Dad, God loves him so much more, so much greater, because our capacity to love him is not that great. And so he's up there getting loved on, just like he loved on all of us. Thank you.
We have a tradition in the theater where the highest appreciation you can give is a standing ovation. If you will all now stand and join me in a rousing send-off for our dearest Val. We have lots of food in the back room, so everybody come and join us, and you'll get a chance to speak to the family. So thank you very much for being here.
experts say it does not last. The experts say it's fleeting. The experts pray love fades so fast. Then tell me, why is my heart still beating? Shouldn't I be less in love with you? Shouldn't I address what time can do? Shouldn't I be more inclined to flee? Shouldn't I control I can be? Shouldn't I confess a sordid fling? Shouldn't I caress a cute young thing? Shouldn't I assess what we've been through? Shouldn't I be less in love with you? After 30 years together, all those brutal fights, those futile fights, then the sleepless night. Shouldn't I have quit, 'cause marriage ends? Shouldn't we have split like all our friends? Shouldn't I profess it's time to go? Shouldn't I be less in love with you?
What?